Good afternoon. We are continuing on with our measurements and angles. Today we are doing CO66. I can identify linear pairs as well as complementary, supplementary, adjacent, and vertical angles. Make good choices, please, because that just stopped the whole lesson. Next time, you'll be excused. So, we need to know what all of these vocab words mean. Complementary angles. Anybody have a guess what a complementary angle is? What's the wrong way? What do you think, James?
I think the complementary angles are angles that that when you add them together they make 180 degrees.
That is an excellent guess. Not quite. So, complementary angles, we know it's more than one. It is two angles. James was correct that we want to find their sum, but it is not 180 degrees. Nope, it is not 360. It is 90 degrees lately. So complementary angles are two angles that sum to be 90 degrees. Only two. We're not going to add up three angles to be 90 degrees. It has to be two angles that you add together to equal 90 degrees. We can see these in two different ways. Sometimes they are next to each other. Well, let's say we've got this, and we say this is 30 degrees, and this would be 60 degrees. So together we can see they make that right angle. They don't have to be next to each other. They can be separate. We could have 30 degrees and 60 degrees. Those two angles, if we add them together, they make 90 degrees. Who knows what is wrong with my pictures? Grace? Well, I didn't make them quite to scale, but it's still acute. What do I need to add to my pictures? Emerson? No, only two angles. Okay. You don't have to draw a point at the vertex, but I do need to add something else, Ed. I've got labels. Likely?
On the 90 degree one, or on the the right angle one, don't you have to have like a little box?
I do.
You have to have a 90 degree to the box.
We just know the box means 90 degrees. Kyle?
Do you have to what's it called? Give me a name?
No, don't have to name it. Biggest?
For the 30 and the 60, you have to have like the line across them.
I don't have to show the arc. Henry?
Is it you have to label if it's right angle or
These are lines. They are not segments, they are lines. So we need to have our arrows. So, complementary angles are two angles that sum to be 90 degrees. Any guesses on what a supplementary angles are? Jude?
That adds to be 360.
What adds to be 360?
Two angles.
So Jude is correct in the two angles that sum or add to be, it is not 360 degrees. 180 degrees. So yesterday we talked about an angle that equaled 180 degrees. Does anybody remember what that was, Grayson? A straight angle. So just like with the complementary, they could be right next to each other. So I could have this. That kind of looks like maybe 40 degrees. So if this is 40 degrees, what does this side have to be? 140 degrees, because that straight angle is 180 degrees. So if I put 40 over here, that would have to be 140. So it equals 180 degrees. Do they have to be next to each other? No, just like our complementary. I could have a 40 degree up here and a 140 over here. And I know if I add the two together, I will get 180 degrees. Remembering to put our arrows on our angles. How do we feel about complementary and supplementary? Complementary, they add two angles. Two. It's always two. Two add to be 90. Supplementary, two angles add to be 180. Making sure we remember they don't have to be touching. They can be separated. Let's look at our next vocab words. What was that, Gabe? Well, complementary and supplementary are not basically the same because they add to different degrees, but they're. So what do you think adjacent angles are? Fiona? No, that would be congruent. Congruent means the same. You are correct. Two angles that what? Grace. So if they're next to each other, it means that they share a common side. So when we were talking about the complementary and supplementary, and I kept saying they don't have to be next to each other. If they are next to each other, it means that they are adjacent. So we have this angle right here shares this side with this angle. They share a side. They are adjacent. They're next to. Rowan? Go real quick. Rainy. We don't ever have to ask. We can just. Okay.
Is that the example that complementary is also adjacent?
So that complementary angle that I gave that looked like this, that means that these two angles are both complementary and adjacent. Right? So yes, it can be both. So now we come to a linear pair. Ooh. Any guess what a linear pair might be? Madden.
Yeah. Four things.
Can you wait till the lesson is done? Can you wait? Kaylin.
Is it where they like cross at a certain
It is not intersecting lines. Henry.
Is it angles that aren't touching each other, like they're apart from each other?
Ooh, no. It's kind of the opposite. Got a guess, Jude?
No, I thought.
So linear pairs are adjacent. So they are adjacent angles. That sum be 180 degrees. They make a straight line. So, what else are they also? If they are a linear pair, what else would they have to be?
Supplementary angles.
What was that, Grayson?
Supplementary angles.
Supplementary angles. So we have our straight line. Doesn't matter what the degrees are, it is a straight line. They are a linear pair because it is a linear pair of angles. So they make that straight line, linear line. So they are also supplementary because it is a straight line, which is 180 degrees. So just like adjacent can be complementary, linear pair is supplementary. Yes.
When you have like a line like that, would you either call it adjacent angle or linear pair? Because like you could name
Both.
it both. Oh, so you name it both, it's just not one.
So it depends on what the question's asking you. So if the question is asking, is there an adjacent angle, you'd say, oh, yep, it's this. If it's asking, oh, is there a linear pair? Oh, yep, it's this. And it's going to be the same line.
Isn't the only difference between a linear and supplementary linear could have like more than
So I was thinking about that also, but look carefully at what it's called. It's called a linear pair. What does pair mean? Two. Don't mean fruit. All right, one more vocab term. Vertical angles. Grace.
two angles that share the same.
Two angles that share what? I can't hear you. The same vertex? Is that what you said? It is. So, vertical angles are angles opposite. So it's not just sharing that same vertex, they have to be opposite each other at a common vertex. So I just added on a little bit to what Grace said. She said they share that common vertex, but they have to be opposite. Vertical angles are congruent. What does it mean to be congruent? It's the same what? The same degree. That same measurement degree. So what that looks like, if we have our x, we know that this angle is congruent with this angle. They are the same measurement because they share a vertex and they're opposite of each other. So that means this angle is congruent with this angle. So notice how those arcs match up with each other. One arc to one arc, we know they are congruent. They are the same measurement. The two arcs is congruent with the two arcs. They are the same measurement. Gabe.
I was gonna ask you, like, are we ever gonna like work on like the boxes, like not the box with what lines,
That's what we're doing. Yep. So we could see it with our congruent lines. We could also see it with the actual measurements given. So if this is 30 degrees, I know this is going to be 30 degrees. If this is 30 degrees, what does this angle measurement have to be?
Wait.
If this is 30 degrees, what does it have to be? 150 degrees. How did you know that? Because this is a straight line that has to equal 180 degrees. So if this is 150 degrees, what does this angle have to be? 150 degrees because they are congruent. So when you have that x, if you're given one measurement, you can fill in all the other measurements. And I keep forgetting. Make our lines. Any questions on any of these types of angles? Claire?
Can we get the question honestly, like John said, coefficient errors?
Honestly, no, because I keep forgetting them. And on Mr. Schultz's answer page here, that bottom one, he forgot to put them
So
himself.
we did it wrong on the test.
What?
Do you think Martha might be here?
I honestly don't know. It depends on how, it's not the key concept, so that's why I'm not quite so nitty-gritty on it, because it's not a key concept. It depends on if it's a key concept on what you're working on. All right, so let's look at our second page.
Sombrero. Too good.
So we need to answer our questions. Study the diagrams below and use them to answer the question. So we've got A, B, C, and D. Which diagram or diagrams above show these things? So there could be multiple, right? You could have multiple diagrams that answer some of these questions. You could reuse the A in multiple ways. There's only 4 diagrams up here, but there are 5 questions. You can reuse, you can have multiple answers for them. The next section says draw and label a diagram for each of the following. Complementary angles that are adjacent. We are not using protractors to make it precise, but they do need to make sense, okay? If they are complementary angles and you're doing something like that, does that look like it could have complementary angles in it?
No.
Why not? That couldn't be 90 degrees. So if you put 2 complementary angles and something like that, because we're going fast and we're not taking our time and giving our best effort, it's going to be wrong. That's obviously not 90 degrees. You cannot rush and be sloppy. It needs to look reasonable. So if it is complementary, we know it is equaling 90 degrees. We need to take our time. It's not precise, exact, but we know that looks way more like 90 degrees than my first drawing. So do not be sloppy. On the test, if you are sloppy and it does not look anything like something that should be 90 degrees, it will be counted wrong. Make sense? All right, so you have to draw and label. So that means you have to put those degree measurements in, labeling it, so it equals what it's supposed to equal. Determine whether each statement below is true or false. If it is false, make it true. What word or words need to change to make it a true statement? Any questions on today's assignment? When we are done with the assignment, working on practice work, working on Khan Academy. Normally, Khan Academy is assigned on Fridays. I did assign it today. It is due next week, Thursday. I know I have some math packets to correct still. I'm trying to get through them, but I keep getting distracted by other stuff that is needed from me, so I'm getting them done. But keep working on those math packets if you still have it. Practice work, practice work, practice work. If you get a practice work done, bring it to me so I can correct it and I can help answer questions so we can learn from our mistakes. How many of us are staying after school today to work on retakes and stuff? All right. Remember, next week, Wednesday and Thursday, I will be after school. It will go a lot easier for retakes tomorrow if our practice work is already corrected and approved. So make sure you're turning them in to get approved. If you are watching at home, I hope you are well and I hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day.